hit the intro. So, that episode just happened. Before I get started here, I have a question. Well, many questions, but I'll keep it to one because this process is going to be like beating my head against a brick wall, and it's not like any of them are going to get answered anyway. Why Renee Montoya? Why did you even introduce this character? If you were going to take a character from the comics that I think most fans tend to like, a character with a history and stories you could adapt and even a superhero identity of her own, not that I'm complaining about not getting that because frankly we dodged a bullet, and do everything conceivable to ruin this character and twist her into something so completely unrecognizable that the Birds of Prey movie had a better version of it, then why even use the character at all? Why wasn't this a totally new character? At least that way people wouldn't get offended when you wrote it like shit. Why introduce Renee Montoya only to do this? This is not any version of Renee Montoya I recognize. I don't know what the hell this is. And that goes for Poison Ivy too. Except in her case, she was just close enough to her comics counterpart to make you really irritated at how offensively bad their portrayal of this classic Batman villain was. My only consolation is that it looks like both of them are off the show now, hopefully to never darken my TV screen again. And is that because Team Batwoman brought them to justice for all the many horrible crimes they committed? Let's just do this. The episode begins with a man being tortured. I can relate. Poison Ivy and Mary are in some plant nursery, and they've taken hostage the CEO of Gotham United Healthcare. Mary constricts this man with her plant vines until he's crying in agony, complaining about how she's treated many patients who were denied claims by him, and then she's bitching about the economy and how healthcare is too expensive, and poor people can't afford it, and it's all this man's fault. Yeah, how dare this bastard have the audacity to run a company that needs to turn a profit to stay in business? Why can't he just give everybody free healthcare? Forget Poison Ivy, capitalism. That's the real supervillain. And this is pretty rich coming from Mary, who inherited multiple billions of dollars from her mother, when the writers remember that at least, and could easily afford to provide free healthcare at her illegal underground abortion clinic until the end of fucking time if she wanted. She doesn't seem to understand that most people do need to make money to, live. So Mary and Ivy wrap this poor schlub up like a mummy, screaming in pain, and just leave him there. And it isn't clear if he dies or not. One of the plant vines went into his mouth and down his throat, so he's probably not going to be able to breathe pretty soon. And considering Mary told him her name and she never gets arrested for this afterward, I think it's a pretty safe bet that this guy dies off screen. But he's never mentioned again, so I guess it doesn't matter. Ivy validates Mary because patriarchy equals bad, and Mary calls this justice. FYI, at the end of this episode, Ryan's going to let Mary off the hook for all this stuff, so try not to fill up that vomit bag just yet. You're gonna need it later. Then Ivy gets a nosebleed, which apparently has been happening on the regular for a while and signals that she's running low on power, I guess. But Mary offers to give her a boost, so Ivy hooks up the jumper cables and sucks more plant energy out of Mary so she can get through the rest of the episode without shitting chlorophyll or something. Cut to Alice walking into the gay bar where Team Batwoman have set up shop. See, previously they were working out of Montoya's office, which was private and slightly more secure, so they didn't have to worry about people walking in off the street and compromising their operation. But now they're working out of a public bar and not even bothering to lock the door or put up a closed sign outside because the CW is up for sale anyway, so who gives a shit? And the weird thing is, Alice even points out that they're not working out of Montoya's office anymore. So they acknowledge that Team Batwoman moved to a less secure location, they just don't say why. Because they already struck the set so they wouldn't have to pay for it anymore would be my guess, but who the hell knows. So Alice tells them about Mary and that the best way to stop two poison ivies is to go after Pam's weakness, Renee. And calling Renee a weakness is easily the most accurate thing the show has done this season, but unfortunately, they don't mean it the same way I do. Cut to a forest where Ivy's telling Mary a story about how when she was a kid, her brother had really bad asthma, and they didn't have a lot of money because capitalism is the devil, remember? So her mom turned to plants and herbal remedies. And when those didn't work, they found out that their drinking water had been poisoned by that factory up the hill, and her brother died. If you ask me, he was the lucky one. So Ivy cuts the chains off a fence with a danger sign on it, and they arrive at the Gotham Dam, which Ivy says supplies power to half the industry in Gotham and saves the city lots of that evil money that Mary hates so much. But more importantly, it made an entire species of fish go extinct, did some more non-eco-friendly shit, and one of the factories it powers just happens to be the one that killed Ivy's brother. It doesn't take a genius to know what Ivy brought them here to do, so as you can imagine, Mary doesn't know what Ivy brought them here to do. I can't totally blame her for that though, because this is very peculiar. Try to wrap your head around this one. The eco-obsessed Poison Ivy wants to destroy a hydroelectric dam, something that provides clean electricity without polluting the environment or anything. Are there no nuclear power plants in Gotham where they could do this story instead? If this was about cutting power to the factory that killed Ivy's brother, why not just attack the factory? This was so baffling, the writers had to spend like 3 minutes contriving a whole bunch of bullshit just to explain it. And I call it bullshit because it literally never gets brought up again. I mean, you'd think the dead brother might be important enough to mention later as something that's been motivating Ivy to do all this, but no, instantly forgotten about. And knowing this show, the kid was probably straight anyway, so him. Cut to Montoya, who's got tickets for her and Ivy and is getting ready for the two of them to haul ass out of town. Then she hops in her car, where Ryan and Alice are waiting to surprise her. Why does everyone on the show keep falling for this? I mean, my God, how hard is it to see into your back seat from outside the car? Are the windows fogged up on every fucking car in Gotham? What the hell's going on here? And they're not technically in a parking lot, so I can't tell you to take a shot this time, but damn it, I could sure go for one right now. Being pissed drunk might be the only way I can get through this one. They bring Montoya to the gay bar. She still maintains that betraying Pam was the biggest mistake of her life, and those many hundreds if not thousands of innocent people she saved by doing so can just go f*** off, apparently. What an endearing character Renee is. Then Sophie comes in because Luke called her, not understanding how awkward that would make things for Ryan, which is the most important thing to take away from this, don't you know? She confronts Renee about keeping the Joker's joy buzzer a secret from them so Alice could never earn her release, and Renee says, and I quote, "You really think I was going to let a psycho killer loose in the city I spent my career protecting?" She literally just said that stopping Poison Ivy from murdering a bunch of people was the biggest mistake of her life. Oh, but letting a killer loose in the city is unthinkable to her. This is so maddeningly hypocritical, even Ryan calls her out for it. Which means the writers are well aware that Renee is spewing bullshit out of every orifice here. They just don't care. Then someone turns on the bat signal, so Ryan does some pre-scissoring hand-holding with Sophie and goes off to see this person, who turns out to be Jada. I guess anyone in the fucking city can just get access to the bat signal and get a private audience with Batwoman whenever they want. And again, all the police just stay inside. I'm sure there's nothing here they need to see, right? Jada's pissed off because Batwoman took her son from his mother. What? As I recall, Jada, she was the one who captured Marcus and told you she had him so you could have a chance to fix him. At what point did you get your wires crossed here? Jada's got the Joker's joy buzzer, but she won't hand it over without getting Marcus back. And weirdly enough, the fact that she took the buzzer from Team Batwoman never comes up. Ryan says that if Marcus wakes up before they figure out how to make the buzzer work, Jada's the first person he's coming after, but Jada's not worried about that because her and Marcus have an arrangement. Well, if you can't trust a murdering sociopath to keep their word about not murdering you, who can you trust? You know, dummies, if that's a legit concern, you could always just tie Marcus up or lock him in his room or something. I think you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. So finally, Jada gives Ryan the buzzer, but only on the condition that she gets Marcus back by midnight tonight, or they're gonna have a problem. And not just the usual, God help us, we're starring on the CW's Batwoman, like, an additional problem. Cut back to the dam, and Mary is still wondering what they're doing there. This woman graduated as the valedictorian at medical school. Think about that for a minute. But eventually she figures it out, and Mary observes that destroying this dam would take out half the city and, kill a whole bunch of people. Funny how that's an issue now, but it wasn't for the poor asshole choking on plant vines in the nursery. But Ivy is like, those losers, it'll be good for the environment. So finally, Mary decides that she can't do this. But she doesn't try to stop Ivy, mind you. She'd just prefer to sit on the bench while Ivy murders millions of people and then collect her participation trophy afterward. Ivy accepts this, and she wouldn't think of making Mary do anything she doesn't want to do, which I guess is supposed to make Ivy likable somehow, but she does still need Mary. So she helps herself to another dose of plant energy until Mary falls to the ground unconscious and then just enters the dam, leaving Mary lying there, sadly not to die from exposure because we just can't have nice things. Back at the gay bar, Sophie runs down a list of all the laws Renee has broken since this farce began. Obstruction of justice, stealing evidence, aiding and abetting, that thing Jacob is currently rotting in prison for, and she asks if Ivy would be risking everything to help Renee right now if the roles were reversed. And it's blatantly clear that she wouldn't, but if they say that, the story doesn't work, so Renee just doesn't answer. Then Luke picks up a police report about Mary being found, and she's now en route to the hospital, and Ryan's off somewhere in the Batmobile right now, and if she goes to get Mary, she'll miss Jada's deadline, but you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, so she's going for Mary. But she'll need some help. Now, does she get Luke, who decided to get back in the Batwing suit last week, who could easily take Marcus to Jada while Ryan's getting Mary? Does she get Sophie, who could also easily do that because pulling this off is really quite simple when their team can be in two places at once? Don't be silly. She gets Alice to help, but not to help with Marcus. Because we need this scene to make whatever the exact opposite of sense is, Ryan wastes time she doesn't have driving back to the gay bar to pick up Alice, then lets Alice drive the Batmobile so they can chase down the ambulance before it gets to the hospital while Luke and Sophie sit there at the gay bar with their thumbs up their asses. And why don't Luke and or Sophie take Marcus to Jada while Ryan's doing this? Because the story needs them not to, and if they did it, the rest of the season couldn't happen. And what a travesty that would be. We're not even at the most infuriating part yet. So Alice is driving the Batmobile. She's being Alice, so she wants to listen to music or whatever, but she turns the comms on by mistake, and now her and Ryan are listening to Sophie and Renee dish all about the night they had sex, lest we be distracted by that silly business of securing the superpowered psychopath before she wakes up. Because God forbid we focus on that. Apparently, after the scissoring, Sophie spent the whole night bitching about Ryan. So Alice is all, OMG, Sophie likes you back. And Ryan is all, back? What are you talking about? I don't like Sophie. Sophie's stupid, and you're stupid, and girls are stupid. So yeah, if you thought we were dealing with two grown-ass adult women here, we're not. Thing is, we're not dealing with 12-year-olds either. A 12-year-old would tell these jackasses to grow the f*** up already. Alice says her and Ryan are the same because they both pretend they don't care, but it's only because when they get something good, they know they're going to screw it up. How does that apply to this situation, Alice? I sure as hell don't see anything good here, do you? They come up on the ambulance, and the driver won't pull over, so they have to get in front of the ambulance so Ryan can jump out of the Batmobile and climb into it. Then she takes Mary out of there, at which point the two EMTs just take their ambulance and f*** off. Man, the healthcare system in this town really does suck, doesn't it? Mary has fallen into a coma, and this is the moment when Alice chooses to share with Ryan that, oh yeah, Mary gruesomely murdered some dude the other night. It'll totally destroy Mary if she finds out. What are you basing this on, Alice? Because based on the show I've been watching for the last 3 seasons, not to mention the opening scene of this episode, I don't think she'll be that bothered by this at all. And sure enough, she isn't. So they bring Mary not to the illegal underground abortion clinic where they would have medical equipment and supplies to treat her with, but to the gay bar where they have booze and lesbians. Because Renee says the cutting that infected Mary in the first place turned her into Pam's sporling, which is a fancy way of saying she's a big plant battery. And if Mary looks like this, that means Poison Ivy must be firing on all cylinders now, so they might be in trouble. Ryan realizes that Poison Ivy is going to attack the dam, you know, because Ryan's a detective. She's going after her, but Renee says that's insane. If Ivy is at full strength now, they don't stand a chance. She says Batman tried to stop Ivy for months and he could never do it, so he had to get Renee to do it for him. This show. So now the only way to stop Poison Ivy is with Mary. They are so screwed. Cut to Ivy, who is now outside the dam after going inside the dam for no fucking reason, and she controls a bunch of plants to spring up out of the concrete to start gumming up all the machinery. Meanwhile, back at the bar, the plot's telling Mary that it's time to magically wake up from her coma, so she does. They tell her that Ivy almost killed her and has just been using her, but this is Mary we're talking about here, and if you expected her to listen to reason, you've got the wrong show. Instead, she's like, oh, you're crazy. It's not like that. She just needs energy. I'll go find her right now. I have to find her. And it totally figures that you'd be like this. I finally have someone who values me for the amazing, super awesome, perfect person I am, so it must be a toxic, codependent relationship, right? F*** all you jerks. Again, Mary's making everything about herself. Again, these dipshits have the mentality of preschoolers. Again, people's fee-fees are more important than all the innocent lives hanging in the balance. I genuinely loathe every single person responsible for this. And speaking of preschoolers, then Mary sees Alice there, and she gets really emotional and upset that Alice told on her and got the teacher to put her in a timeout. So Mary shits on Alice, and then she shits on Ryan, and shits on Luke, and shits on Sophie, and do they all deserve it? Of course they do. But not like this. If you were really my friends, she whines, then you'd respect my wishes when I said to leave me alone. And then Ryan tells her that she killed someone. And Mary was more upset about her friends hurting her feelings than she is about this. Everything! Cut back to Ivy, who has gone back inside the dam for no reason, right after going outside the dam for no reason, after she went inside the dam for no reason. These writers are very confused about something, and I honestly don't know what. The whole place is shaking and coming apart around Ivy, then some dam employee walks in, so she murders him. Yeah, that'll teach him for existing. She controls more plant vines to do more damage, I guess. Then Mary walks in, saying Ivy's gonna kill herself, and also, hey, what's with that dead guy over there? Oh, him. Oh, it's no big. He just wanted to stop me from rubbing out my kill boner, so I impaled him through the chest. So what's new with you, girlfriend? I joke, but sarcasm aside, they really do treat the act of murder that casually on this show. At least the murder of white people. It's pretty deranged, actually. So Mary says that as much as she wasn't on board with the kill many innocent people plan, she really didn't want Ivy to exert herself, which of course is the much more important thing to be concerned about, and everything about this is bullshit times 1,000, so naturally, Ivy believes her. Cut to a flashback to several minutes ago where Montoya explains the plan to stop the bad guy because our heroes don't have one of their own. They're gonna take this Deus Ex Machina toxin Renee created to make herself immune to Poison Ivy's powers and have Mary drink all of it. That way, when Ivy uses Mary to recharge herself, she'll absorb the toxin and be weakened by it. And this, of course, is assuming several very important things, only one of which is actually mentioned. Ivy draining Mary again might kill Mary, that at least Ryan brings up. But also, how the hell do they know that Ivy will even absorb the toxin? And how do they know this toxin, which was so dangerous Montoya could only ingest it 1 drop a day, mind you, won't kill or weaken Mary, who just woke up from a coma and most likely is not at full HP herself right now? Why would it weaken Ivy but not Mary? That makes no sense at all. They don't actually know any of these things and have no reason to believe any of this is going to work, but that's the plan. All brought to us by Renee Montoya, the character who already made it very clear that her sympathies lie with the psychotic mass murderer over the masses of innocent people said murderer is trying to kill. This idea is bulletproof. So Ryan brings up the issue that Ivy might just kill Mary, which isn't really an issue so much as a light at the end of a tunnel, but Mary still wants to do it, and if it gets to be too much, she'll just pull away, which she thinks she can do because Pam's not stronger than me. Cut back to the dam, where Poison Ivy sucks Mary dry and drops her like a rock. So Mary wasn't stronger than Pam then. Who could have seen that coming? Ivy gets a little bit wobbly for a second, but otherwise seems perfectly fine. Then Batwoman shows up, they start fighting, and oh my god, this fight is fucking terrible! Ivy sends plant vines at Ryan, which she cuts away. Then they're fighting hand to hand. Ivy is using plant vines like bullwhips, like she's Indiana fucking Jones. I'm busting a gut at this, it's so embarrassing. This is easily one of the stupidest, most cartoonish fights they've ever done on this show. This is the big finale to the entire Poison Ivy arc, and it's absolutely laughable. And the kicker is, Bridget Regan has proven on at least 2 different shows I've seen that she can do action very well. You would have to work really hard to not produce a fight that was at least watchable here, but somehow, some way, they pulled it off. Fucking hell. We cut to Luke flying in the Batwing suit to fix all the machinery the plants have been interfering with. Some vines grab him and tie him up. He flashes back to all the terrible things that have happened to him recently. Marcus beating him to shit, the writers trapping him in the living hell that is this show. I guess it's supposed to illustrate Luke getting over that imaginary PTSD he never had. Then he finally realizes that these are just fucking plant vines and he's wearing powered armor that gives him super strength, so he easily breaks out of them and then fixes all the machinery off screen. Wow, that was easy. Then we're back to Ivy and Ryan, and Ivy says that this city can't be saved because it's a cesspool of crime and corruption, so best to just wipe it all out and start fresh. So they're fighting on a scaffolding or something. She's hanging off the edge by one of her vines, so Ryan just cuts the vine. Ivy falls off the ledge, and that's all she wrote. It ends not with a whimper, but with a wet fart. This amounted to nothing more than a colossal waste of time, but Christ, at least it's finally over. So Luke carries Mary out, then Ivy wakes up, and stop me if you've heard this one, instead of apprehending the psychotic mass murderer who just tried to murder masses of innocent people without one shred of remorse, Ryan just walks away. Umpteenth verse, same as the first. At the bar later, Mary, now back to normal, for her anyway, wakes up, and all I can focus on here is how, after all this, her makeup is still perfectly applied, not even smudged, because that makes sense. It's an asinine period at the end of an asinine episode. And speaking of asinine stuff, the very first thing Ryan does is apologize to Mary. She apologizes after Mary spent the last several episodes committing various crimes and empowering a supervillain. Of course! Ryan says they'll never let Mary feel sidelined by this team ever again, which is bullshit because that's not what happened. What happened was Mary sidelined herself by keeping her problems a secret from everybody and acting like a massive jackass. It was 100% Mary's fault, so naturally, she's the one getting apologized to. You writers. And as if your blood wasn't boiling enough already, Mary acknowledges that she murdered someone, technically two someones, but I guess we're just forgetting about that first guy, which seems to have her perturbed slightly, but not much else. And just as I predicted, and I was right, Ryan can't let her off the hook for this fast enough. No, Boo. Poison Ivy killed someone. And now she's gone, and Mary's back. Oh, okay. So, no reason to feel guilty about taking a human life, no reason to take responsibility for her actions, no reason to be conflicted about that do no harm nonsense, no reason to learn anything from this experience whatsoever, bygones to all of it, because accountability is meaningless and responsibility is for suckers. What a wonderful message to the impressionable audience watching at home. Mary had a stronger reaction to Alice ratting her out than she did to becoming a murderer. This show can go straight to hell. Then Ryan talks to Alice and spells out for us that Alice came back to Gotham because she cares about Mary, and even though she loved every second of it, she still felt guilty for changing Mary to be more like her. So Alice should feel guilty about empowering a crazy villain, but Mary shouldn't feel guilty about doing the exact same thing. Gotcha. I wonder what the difference between those two could possibly be. So Ryan acknowledges that Alice did kind of try to fix this situation she helped create, and that didn't go unnoticed, but that doesn't mean Ryan's gonna make a deal on Alice's behalf. I mean, what kind of up morally repugnant asshole would do something like that? Cut to Poison Ivy waking up on a plane because Renee made a deal on her behalf, which apparently Ryan was A-okay with. I'm sure the grieving families of all the innocent people Ivy murdered will be just thrilled about this. And once again, the issue is not about letting this dangerous psychotic killer and her accomplice escape justice for all the murders and other crimes they committed and all the countless innocent lives they put in danger. That noise. It's about lesbianism. Justice wasn't even a factor here. The only factor was magically letting these morally reprehensible characters off the hook for everything they did wrong, letting them avoid any and all consequences of their actions, and happily ride off into the sunset after nearly massacring a city full of innocent people just because they're gay. Because gay people can't be criminals. Off. So, not shockingly, it's just about their relationship now. Ivy is butthurt that Renee betrayed her again and decides that this relationship doesn't work because they just want different things. But Renee says that if going back to Gotham and committing mass murder is more important to her than us, then Ivy should just go ahead and jump out of this plane. Do it, Ivy! For God's sake, save yourself before they bring you back for more episodes! And then Renee explains that she didn't sell out Ivy. She made a deal for Ivy's freedom, and the deal was that the two of them get to skirt the law, escape justice, pay no consequences whatsoever for the countless mistakes they made, get off scot-free for every horrible thing they ever did, every crime, every murder, live out the rest of their lives in lesbianic bliss on a tropical island paradise, and everyone else gets nothing. Sophie negotiated this deal, didn't she? Why would they even need to make a deal? Ivy was defeated. The crisis was over. What the f***? Oh my God! This show has got to be the most despicable thing I've ever seen. I felt dirty after watching this. That the writers somehow thought this was a good message. That they were patting themselves on the back, thinking they had created a morally complex villain who exists in shades of gray, makes me weep for pop culture. You actually had the balls to send this tweet out into the world? Morally complex, my asshole. The only complex thing here is the depth of the writer's sheer fucking lunacy. Check out the comments on there, by the way. They got absolutely eviscerated for that tweet. So Mary almost reads a news article about that guy she killed, but then decides that reading is totally lame and doesn't. And Ryan and Sophie state that Renee isn't really a bad person. She's just in love. The two things are not mutually exclusive, you assholes. Anyway, they're making more fuck-me eyes at each other, and just when that scissoring meme I made is about to get another workout, Jada appears on the news, and because they missed her deadline, she tells the entire city that all the chaos caused by those Bat-villain weapons going missing was Batwoman's fault, which I'm sure everyone will believe even though Jada doesn't have a shred of proof, and Batwoman needs to turn herself in before she does any more damage. Wow, you guys. I'm so glad we left Luke and Sophie at the gay bar instead of having them give Marcus back to Jada before midnight. We sure avoided a tough situation there, didn't we? And the episode ends at the illegal underground abortion clinic where Marcus is lying on a bed, completely alone, with no one guarding him to make sure he doesn't wake up. Not tied up, not handcuffed to the bed, not secured or restrained in any way, shape, or form. You know, because they were so worried about him escaping and doing stuff. There's a leak in the ceiling, a drop of water falls onto his head, his eyes open, to be continued. This shit, I'm out. God damn it! I thought I knew what bad TV was. I thought The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, not to mention seasons 1 and 2 of Batwoman, had prepared me for how absolutely pathetic the CW superhero shows could be. But I really had no idea. Just from a moral standpoint alone, this episode might be among the most disgusting things I've ever watched. The message conveyed here was so deplorable, these writers should be fucking ashamed of themselves. The characters are downright offensive, no one has to take responsibility for anything they do wrong, unrepentant killers and criminals get happy endings they don't deserve and did nothing to earn just because they're gay, and because, let's be honest, these writers never considered killing white people to be a crime in the first place. Anything lesbian related is a higher priority than stopping a mass murder, and I could go on for quite a while, but I don't think I need to. This episode made me physically ill, and if that vomit bag isn't quite overflowing just yet, then pass it over here, because we've still got 3 more episodes to go. God help us! 3 more episodes. Jesus Christ. Sinus surgery was less aggravating than this. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment, ding the bell icon, and follow my social media so you can always be notified when I upload new stuff. I also have a live streaming channel. Links to everything are down below. Thumbs up the video, share, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, and I'll be back with more soon. So stay tuned for that. Do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time. My ass, that was horrible! God damn it!